We found out early this morning that what started off as a rescue act is now officially a recovery act. Up to 67 people feared dead in this American Airlines and helicopter collision taking place right outside of Reagan National Airport. And that flight, of course, as you well know, was coming in from Wichita. We are now welcoming on and saying good morning to Congressman Ron Estes. He, of course, represents the Wichita area on KCMO Talk Radio. Congressman, good morning. We appreciate you being here on KCMO. And what can you share with us on how you're feeling and what conversations you're having with your city and your constituents today?
Well, good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be on. I just wish it was for a different situation instead of this tragic event that has happened. And we spent a lot of time in the last 12 or 13 hours, I guess, as we've kind of sorted through all the events. I was in contact overnight with the White House Situation Room and the National Transportation Safety Board and trying to work through where they are. Obviously, it's just a terrible tragedy for the 60 passengers and the 4 crew members and the 3 service members that all are now presumed to be dead and passed away because of the accident. And so we're trying to sort through all of that and working through that. I was at a press conference this morning with the Wichita mayor and city airport authority folks here. And the American Airlines obviously is involved in this, along with NTSB and the Federal Aviation Authority, and trying to sort through all the dynamics. I don't know that there's of anyone that I know personally that's on the plane. We haven't seen the passenger list yet. The first process, obviously, when something like this happens, is you go through the search and rescue and try to rescue as many people as you can, and then once that time passes, you go into the recovery effort, and then the airlines and Transportation Safety Board have to reach out to the next of kin of the families for the folks that have passed away, and then we'll get some more information. So it is a little bit frustrating as you're trying to be able to sort through all the consequences of an incident like this, and we're trying to work through that as much as we can, and trying to keep in mind, first and foremost, all the victims and their families and loved ones. Mm-hmm.
Congressman Ron Estes is here, 4th District of Kansas, which includes Wichita. So do you have any more idea, Congressman? We know that, the U.S. figure skating event was happening down there. There are many who were involved with that who were on the plane. Do you have any idea? Are you closer to finding out how many on the plane were Kansas natives who were traveling either for personal or business reasons to D.C.?
We don't know the details of that, of people that were residents in Wichita or Kansas, people that residents in the D.C. area. As you mentioned, the U.S. Figure Skating Association had their national championship here over the last week, and there were some social media reports that there were some of those members that were part of that event that were on the plane, but we haven't had anything officially confirmed on that. Most of the events finished over the weekend. I do know there were a few people that had stayed here for Monday and Tuesday for things that were going on, but we don't know yet that there's anybody officially that was related to that.
I was told that you were on this plane when it came back to Wichita before it made the return flight to D.C. and the tragedy occurred. Is that accurate?
No, I was not on the plane. I did fly into the airport about shortly after the plane took off to go to Washington, D.C. I was returning from a planning conference that we'd had. So I was at the airport shortly after the plane left Wichita to go to Washington, but not on that plane that flew here.
Gotcha.
This flight, has been in effect for a year now. I have flown it several times over the last over the last year, going back and forth to Washington.
Well, I was going to say this was a big deal, as I recall, when Wichita got this direct flight to Washington, D.C., not just for obviously Wichita residents, but certainly very convenient for folks like yourself and other members of the Kansas delegation. So I imagine you've done this flight, Congressman, dozens of times now over the last year easily?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say dozens of times. Sometimes the schedule didn't work out with our voting schedule in Washington. That the flight times didn't work. It's one of those things. Obviously, when you want to have flights to and from destinations that are frequently traveled, and Washington D.C. is one of those most frequently traveled destinations, and certainly was a lot more convenient to having a nonstop flight flying to and from Washington, D.C. than to have to connect somewhere.
Gotcha. Okay. So now, as you look at the rest of your day today, Ron Estes on KCMO, what does it look like for you the next couple of hours, and what are your plans in terms of informing Wichita residents and also Kansans at large? What exactly happened here?
So we're still gathering a lot of information as they've announced out of Washington that they're actually moving into a recovery mode and process, which means that they'll be gathering more information. I know President Trump's going to speak in about 45 minutes, and I'm going to be on a conference call with the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee that has responsibility jurisdiction over the Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board and the airlines. And so we're going to get an update on what they have. I've been in contact with the White House Situation Room as well, and as we're going through all the details and things that are going on, so we're getting more updates. And the airline, American Airlines, is involved in working with the passengers and the families of the passengers and crew as well.
Is American the biggest airline that flies in and out of that Wichita airport?
There, it is, although United and Delta and Southwest, and Allegiant Airlines as well have flights in and out of the airport. America's probably has more flights per day than any of the other airlines.
What about just flying in and out of Reagan? And it's gotten a lot of attention, but anyone who has done it knows it's tight. It's a very crowded airspace for obvious reasons. There are national security issues. Is this something that just in your conversations with other members of Congress and folks in D.C. has ever gotten attention in recent years? Or is it just one of those things where we kind of have become accustomed to air travel being a certain way, and it's not something that really has seemed like a major concern?
Well, I mean, we do have a very safe, in fact, the safest in the world air travel.
Yeah.
Criteria. And as you mentioned, the Reagan Airport, being right there on the river, relatively close proximity to downtown Washington, D.C., it does have some challenges a little bit as pilots come in and land and take off. Typically, they follow the flow of the river, which, if you know rivers, there's some slight curves in that. And the main airport at Reagan is the busiest, if not the busiest, airport runway in the country. The plane was landing on the secondary runway because it was a smaller plane, and that's appropriate for that size plane, which has a slightly different pattern. But it's all standard. The flight patterns were normal in terms of what you would expect for both the plane and the helicopter. So we've got to answer some of those questions around why did this happen, and how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again, and as we go through the process of dealing with and supporting the victims and their families.
Ron Estes, Kansas Congressman on KCMO. I know it is a busy morning, and you have been at it for the last 12 hours now. Thank you for joining us on KCMO, Congressman Estes. Unfortunately, the circumstances are what they are, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me on and being able to provide this update.
You as well. That is Congressman Ron Estes on 95.7 FM.